Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Your Lecturer series. This is Mwalimu Sam Mugai. This week we have a very interesting topic that we're going to discuss, and we have an interesting guest on board. Now, remember, the purpose of this platform is to educate, to inspire, and particularly this week, as we go into the Mental Health Awareness Month, we want to talk about stories, inspiring stories. And today I have one of my students here who's going to introduce herself, and then we'll go right into it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mwalimu, for having me here. My name is Sally Motembe. I am a Mwalimu student. I'm also a designer professionally.
Thank you. Now, you've had a particularly interesting journey, and that's why I brought you here, so that we can inspire other Gen Zs out there that it's okay not to be okay. Now, let's begin with your journey in looking for a suitable college to train. I know through my interactions with you that you've actually traversed through 3 colleges before you got your bearing. Tell us a little bit about this journey. What was happening in your mind, and what were you looking for?
I remember the first university I was in was Daystar University, and that's actually where I met Mwalimu.
Yes.
And joining Daystar, I didn't particularly know what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but with the options that were presented to me, because at that time still there's parents telling you, go do this, go do that.
Yes.
I knew for a fact I was not going to do something that I would do for 4 years and then later on go do now what I want, because that's a common story with your generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also baby boomers, and I've interacted with so many people who told me my mom or my dad forced me to do this and then I had to go do it. And I was like, no, that's a waste of time and money and effort.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately what I started with was a certificate in communications.
Yes.
And along the way I discovered I don't want to be a journalist.
Wow.
I really don't want to be a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when, through your classes, I discovered filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I experimented with script writing, I experimented with videography, editing, and I was like, okay, this feels like home.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like something I would want to do 10, 20 years later.
Yes.
I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, that's when I went and joined Chantal.
Mm-hmm.
I did a certificate in animation and multimedia.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I discovered new softwares like Adobe Premiere, those Cinema 4D. I was like, I'm actually really good at this. I'm actually really, really good at this.
Mm-hmm.
And this opened up my horizons, because beyond filmmaking, I could enter animation. Beyond filmmaking, I could also enter photography.
Mm-hmm.
And after Chantal, that's when now I joined ADMI to do 2D animation.
Mm-hmm.
And it broadened my horizons even further, because actually, before I joined ADMI, I was doing a bootcamp for product design.
Yes.
That's in UI UX.
Mm-hmm.
So this bootcamp is actually called Zuri and Aggressive for Good. It's quite popular in the tech field.
Mm-hmm.
So I was already in the tech field, and what made me enter 2D animation was because I wanted to be in the tech field doing UI animation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I'll do that ADMI.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I found myself here. And then I met you after years of not being in contact. And then ultimately, after ADMI, I went back into the tech field
Mm-hmm.
in UI UX with now all these things that I know from 3 different institutions. And I was like, okay, all right. Do you know right now, aside from UI, I'm now in UXR. So UI is mostly the design of the websites, the mobile apps.
Mm-hmm.
UXR is the research that goes behind it. So, for example, if I'm to design a mobile ticketing app,
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to do research. I'll have to ask you what influences you to buy, say, like a movie ticket. So you see, every time when you hear Uber has a new update, Instagram has a new update on the website, on their apps,
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of that. That's what I'm doing in the tech field now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned some very interesting aspects of your journey.
Yes.
My question is, since your parents are in my generation,
Yes.
now, did you get support from your folks in this journey? Because our generation tends to be a bit rigid. And they're like, you said Chantal, then let's stay there.
Yeah.
Now, after a while, you moved from Chantal, you went. Tell us about
Actually,
that.
after Chantal, I did a short carpentry course. And then after the short carpentry course, I did an online boot camp. After the online boot camp was the AMI about support. I would say I got it by force. I got it by force because ultimately, I come from a family of 4 girls.
Yes.
And I'm the 4th born, a Gen Z. We're very hard-headed. We're very hard-headed. So
yes.
actually, my mom would tell you she's very concerned about my direction in life because she doesn't quite particularly understand it yet. But I still try to paint it for her the whole, because if you look at it from a professional aspect, they all add up to form one big thing. But somebody from your generation, you're very used to one line, follow it, finish it.
Yeah.
And then I'm jumping from here to there to everywhere. So ultimately, if somebody would call me confused, I would understand where they're coming from, because I do feel confused also at some point because it's yet to fully manifest into one big picture.
Yes.
Yeah. So now when it comes to support, I got it by force because ultimately, I remember I told my mom, I really don't know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. But then also in knowing what I'm doing, I think I would highlight, sort of touch on the Kenyan education system.
Yes.
Because if you look at what my interest in, I'm very interested in the film industry. And why I went into carpentry is because I wanted to learn how to make props, set designs, how to do the whole setup without needing to import these things from China because these materials are locally available.
Yes.
And at some point, I was shooting film with some of my friends. You know some of them.
Yes.
They actually put me in charge of props because I was very crafty to date. I'm still very crafty. Even when I have friends over at my place, I tell them, as you're coming over, please understand my house is a workshop because it's separated. There's this part where there's the art stuff. I even have like the carpentry tools and this. It's very organized, but it just looks like a whole entire workshop and also a living room at the same time. Because I'm very passionate about like working with my hands.
Yes.
And that's even how I found myself in carpentry. That's how I found myself doing some small furniture items, some sort of craft items. Because growing up as a child, my dad was also a crafter. So I've handled beadwork. I've played with cement to try and make art, charcoal, plaster, any medium I come across that can actually give me an artistic sort of outcome. I will experiment with it.
Wow, this is interesting. Now, this journey keeps evolving.
Yeah.
What is your passion currently? Is it in one aspect? So tell us about that.
Like I said, designer, because it's a very holistic title.
Yes.
There's the industrial design, where we would have the carpentry, the small craft items, and then there's the UI UX design, which is more tech field.
Yes.
Because I don't usually necessarily want to put myself in a box, because I think it's putting yourself in that box that sort of leads to depression.
Yes.
Because now when things stop working out in this box, what happens then? So now take for example, I'm working in the tech field.
Yes.
And then I'm working on a design that's really stressing me out. It's not working out. It won't cooperate with what I want it to do. So I'll take a break from that. My balcony has like a bit of furniture pieces, some small timber there. I'll go work on something, build, mess it up, build again. And in that process, I'm still processing the problem I had before. And that's how I get to open up my horizons and I find solutions to things even to problems I didn't know I had.
Now, as we progress, where do you think you'll be earning an income and doing something that you love? Because that's very important.
That would be in the tech field.
In the tech field.
Yeah, in UX design.
All right. Now, in your academic journey,
yes,
did you find or did you get any support from the trainers? Because in many of these institutions, let's face facts, they are mainly commercially oriented.
Yes.
Just go in, you enroll for a course,
God.
they just teach you, you have your cards, you have your exams, you have your practicals, that's it, get your certificate or diploma or degree, And bye. See you. All the best. Now, if you need support, did you get any like one-on-one support? Because that's also very important in the journey of life, in the journey of academia.
I did get support,
Yes.
but finding out where to get the support was actually the challenge.
Yes.
Because I remember my first campus was Daystar University.
Mm-hmm.
When you first join it, everybody's busy, everybody has work to do, everybody has something to do.
Yes.
And I remember I was in your class, you were teaching communications,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe it was more of your body language
Mm-hmm.
that had this, welcoming, fatherly vibe,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I approached you the first time. I remember the first time it was sort of like a test. I don't know
Yes.
if you still remember.
Yes.
I was like, Mwalimu,
Mm-hmm.
ABCD.
Yes.
It wasn't quite particular, but it was a sort of a test.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you handled it,
Mm-hmm.
you were very calm about it.
Yes.
You were very communicative. You gave me a chance to actually speak my side and understand where I'm coming from before you give me your 2 cents from it,
Yes.
which is very rare
Mm-hmm.
because in most of these institutions, people are just looking to make their money and go.
Yes, indeed.
I want to earn my salary and go.
Mm-hmm.
Lecturers like this do exist because even at ADMI, I did find such a lecturer and they're still here.
Yes.
Auto at Changtao, they were there.
Mm-hmm.
At the boot camps I'm at,
Yes.
they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
The issue comes in identifying these lecturers because it's not that you go around saying that
Yes.
I'm here for you, I'm here for you, I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of I won't say or, but I don't think that's actually the word for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of there's just sort of like welcoming essence about these lecturers who do help you with.
Yes.
And after that small test, I
Mm-hmm.
remember that's when I approached you with now even bigger problems. I was like, Mwalimu, I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
How do I solve this?
Yes.
And when you give solutions, you don't give it from your point of view. And that's what I really liked about interacting with you. Because most of the time when you present your case to sort of like a teacher, a lecturer or
Mhm.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they give you solutions based on them
Yes.
and their own point of view. So now that excludes you and that makes you feel like what you said is a bit irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you find students approach you, then they realize that it's not working out.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll just decide to go die with their problems, which is a problem in its own.
Yes. Wow. Thank you for that. Now, a very interesting aspect in the academic journey or the
Yes.
training journey. Very few institutions will actually link the academic skills with the entrepreneurship side of it. So, how did you learn where the money is, how to make money, how to manage money? Where did that come from?
Necessity. Necessity.
Necessity. So, you made some mistakes along the way.
Yes,
Mhm.
very big mistakes.
Wow.
Because I remember what made me start how I got my first job. I
Mhm.
think I was 18 years old
Yes.
and I sold insurance.
Mhm.
I was working with Jubilee Insurance.
Yes.
And what I realized is there's a way you need to present yourself at such situations.
Mhm.
So what happened at Daystar, there was this, she was a classmate of mine, she was called Anne, but she was one of his older students.
Mhm.
And I'm a very curious person.
Yes.
If I look at this person, I'm like, you look like you have stories to tell.
Mhm.
I would most definitely approach you. So that's what happened in that student. I believe her name was Anne.
Yes.
So I was like, Anne, you look like you make a lot of money.
Mhm.
What is it that you do?
Mhm.
Then she told me she sells insurance. I was like, at that point, I didn't even know what insurance was. When you're just fresh out of high school, these things your parents used to take care of.
Mhm.
Your work was just to be alive,
Yes.
right? So Anne told me that the next day her boss was to come to the campus,
Mhm.
and that's when she was like, you can actually meet my boss. So Anne arranges a meeting with her boss and I, and
Mhm.
there was another schoolmate of mine who was also there. So I meet the boss. Then when talking to the boss, of course, I sort of, you talk the talk.
Yes.
You're not really there, but you talk the talk.
Mhm.
So the boss told me that they're actually having a new intake of interviews the
Mhm.
next week.
Mhm.
Then she asked me, would you be available? I was like, yes. I'll be available, 100% I'll be available.
Yes.
And that time I was lucky because we had closed school
Mhm.
for about a month, so I had 2 weeks to enter the training.
Mhm.
When I entered the training, they assumed I was 25 years old. Because when I logged my first client, there was an issue with creating an account with the company
Mhm.
because they don't actually take 18-year-olds, they take 23 and above, or is it 21 and above, that time, I don't remember. But that showed me that, I can actually make it. I think that was my first eye opener. And I earned like a bit of commission from that. And I was like, if I can do this, what can't I do? Yeah.
Now, many of the organizations here in this country
Yeah.
are run by people in our generation.
Yes.
What kind of challenges did you face and how did you overcome them? Because many of them would actually, let me just say, they won't really encourage you to thrive.
Yeah.
And after a certain while, you find there's a ceiling. You can't go beyond that.
Yes.
How did you maneuver that space?
I started my own business. I started my own business. Yeah. So ultimately, because after insurance, I think I became a personal assistant at some point. I was also a social media manager.
Yes.
And I did other jobs. I don't remember all of them. Okay, there's the social media management. I was a photographer at some point.
Yes.
And then I was also a carpenter, a salesperson, designer. I've done so many jobs, and along the way, interacting with these different, because you see these are different fields, these are different work areas.
Yes.
And most of these jobs, I got them by being in the right place. Right? And what I did was I put myself in places I don't quote unquote belong in. And I put that in quotes because I don't think there's a place no one belongs.
Yes.
If you believe in yourself, you even right now, Malim from the State House.
I'll find my way.
You'll find your way.
Yes.
So there's no way you can say I don't belong here. So what happened with most of these jobs, I happen to have put myself at this, sometimes they put these posters of women in tech, this event, this empowering event. I attend. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what's going to happen, but I go nonetheless. And then during this event, you spot the power people. Power talks.
Yes.
They don't have to highlight themselves and say, I'm this. No, power talks. Power has a sort of smell.
It does.
There's a way power walks.
Yes, and
then
it has presence.
Yes, this is power, right? So I meet these ladies, I tell them, hey, hi, my name is Sally, I'm a student at ABC. I'm looking to work part-time for you. Is there a position that's available in your company? Most of the times it would be a no. And most of the times it's a no, but with reservation.
Yes.
So if it's a no with reservation, there's a chance to get. So I maneuver, I talk to them, you switch talk power. And there's a way, there's a way you have to talk to power.
Yes.
They're not there to talk about, yesterday I was eating osteo. There are specific topics.
Yes.
And what happens is I teach myself beforehand. So if, say for example, it's like an economics talk, I do not know the first thing to do with economics. But I know 1, 2, 3 things because I've done my research and I'm also very curious. I've crawled all through the internet, economics. At some point, I'm the type of friend who will tell you about the history of soap.
Yes.
I do not know how I know that, but I know that. Right? So with all this knowledge, I approach power, I talk to power, I pitch myself to power. And then that's when they tell me we have an open position. When can you come in? I tell them Monday. It's probably Friday, then I tell them Monday. And then you see with that sort of aggression, when you actually aggressively seek things,
yes,
it always works out.
Wow, interesting. Now, as a young lady,
you
may find from time to time in the journey of life that you have some psychological challenges, emotional issues, relationship challenges. How do you handle that? Do you have a mentor, or how do you deal with that?
This was actually a journey. It was a long journey because I remember the last time we were in touch in Daystar.
Yes.
I had a really long story about my mental health and my mental state. And then when we met at ADMI, you're like, you've changed.
Yes.
I remember you saying those words, wow, you've changed, right? So what happened was, growing up, I feel like I grew up a very depressed person, and most of it, in hindsight, looks like this was just my own doing. Because there's a sort of depression that comes with life, and there's sort of depression that you just put yourself in this sort of space where things are not working out, I'm falling out with friends.
Yes.
My relationship with my family is also falling out. We're all quiet on each other. But ultimately, also at some point, I feel like I went into drinking as a sort of like seeking answers, right? And drinking is not giving me answers. Isolating myself is not giving me answers. So I had to sit down with myself. I'm like, Sally, let's talk about this. Let's be real.
Yes.
You have to be real with yourself, because if you're not real with yourself, are you gonna be real with anyone else?
Yes.
So I had to sit myself down, and then I realized that at some point I'm over dramatizing things. Yeah, because there was the issue with school. I realized that I have some things and I have a skill of picking up things really fast.
Yes.
So that things I can teach myself. So if I'm not getting that satisfaction from school, I can get it from myself by teaching myself and actually putting myself in the field, throwing myself in situations where I have to learn this thing.
Yes.
Right? Take for example, like those jobs, my PA job. I didn't know the first thing that's to do with PA, so I had to learn Microsoft Word, Excel professionally. There's knowing it, and then there's actually knowing what you're doing with this. So that's what I did with myself. I threw myself in situations where I had to learn. And then people say this, but they don't actually mean it. And then now they actually realize that I have to mean it when it comes to self-love.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's a very common, you just learn how to love yourself, you know, self-esteem, self-love. It's said so many times, it loses meaning because it's been oversaid over and over and over.
Yes.
But once you actually sit down and think, wow, I need to start loving myself.
Yeah.
You start to realize that when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're calling yourself unworthy, unreliable, lazy. I know these are things you've heard about you.
Yeah.
So now it becomes your own confession of yourself. So if you start confessing these things to yourself, it actually becomes these things, and that's how you lead yourself in this depression. So now I had to unlearn so many things. I had to unlearn so many things from the bad friends I had around, from bad things that I had about myself, from bad. I had to delete all of things from. It took me years actually, because we've been we were out of touch. I think like 3-4 years. To date, I'm still learning a few things about myself, and I've come to a place where I need to identify my triggers, because we all have things that when this happens to you, this is the result. And if you realize there's always a pattern, there's always a pattern with things surrounding mental health. And once you realize what your patterns are, what they look like, what they're triggered by, you start to learn how to be gentle with yourself, be softer with yourself, be more calm. If you make a mistake, you're not like, you're stupid, you're lazy, you don't know. No, you're like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not know. Like I say, it's okay not to be okay. Because sometimes you're not okay, and then now you're not okay about not being okay. And then it's a cycle of not being okay because you're not okay because you're not okay. And before you know it, it's been 2 weeks, you're in the house, you've hardly showered, brushed your teeth, you've not eaten, you're losing weight, you've become someone else.
Wow, that's interesting, because you've been able to identify the triggers and the challenges, and you've looked at yourself in the mirror, and you've been able to find a way forward. Now, do you have friends that transcend beyond your generation? Maybe in our generation or in the millennials, people who are older, sincere people whom you can look to and look up to. Do you have such friends?
I do. Because first and foremost, I don't believe in interacting with one set of people. Even beyond age, say like financial status. If, say for example, let's take Kibera, right? And then we have Runda. These two places, kind of Kibera. This is somebody from Runda speaks perfect English. They have the perfect grammar, the perfect lifestyle. Somebody from Kibera hardly knows English, maybe, right? I've interacted with both sets of people, and each has their own story to tell. Because you'd be surprised when you idolize someone, you want to be them, you want their life, because at some point I was that person who idolizes people. You want things, their life looks perfect. But once you sit down and actually talk to these people, you actually learn to learn these people, you're like, wow,
Yeah.
Everybody has problems.
Mhm.
Everybody has all kind of problems. And sometimes maybe the person who's staying in Kibera has a more peaceful life than the one in Runda.
Yes.
And not peaceful in terms of finances, peaceful in terms of mental health.
Mhm.
Because those are two different things,
Yes.
right? Because now when it comes to age, I have friends who are even teenagers, because they always have stories. They're the most interesting people.
Yes.
Teenagers are very interesting.
Mhm.
And their view on life, their innocence at how they look at things, at how they want to go about, it's just very wow. Compared to somebody who's in their 30s and 40s, who's already at a point in their life they can't keep making risky choices,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this person, maybe they've had their families, they've had their kids, they need to make financial decisions that involve all of these people.
Mhm.
And once you get to befriend these different age groups, these different financial groups, you learn that life is just one big hell of a big question mark.
Wow.
Life is just a big question mark.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, how has new discoveries in technology helped your work, like ChatGPT? How have you incorporated that in your workspace to help get things done without actually plagiarizing
Yes.
or having copyright issues?
Yeah, definitely. Take for example, there's a job I was applying for last week.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me for a cover letter,
Yes.
and it was, the sites where they time you.
Yes, yes, oh yes.
We have like a 2-minute lapse.
Yes, so you have to read.
Yes.
Yes.
And when you have that you are seeing that timer, your head blocks out, you are having writer's block. I do not know what I want to write here.
Yes.
I remember there's my friend ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
I tell ChatGPT, okay, this is who I am, this is what I want, write me a cover letter. And of course it will give you that, and ultimately that's sort of like a blueprint,
Yes.
or like a sample of what you want your cover letter. You don't just copy paste,
Yes.
right? Because at some point it has some things that if there's a way to talk, it doesn't talk like you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way when people write.
Yes.
People write the way they talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was to write an article on, like, say, cameras,
Yes.
and if you were to write it, it would be two different things. And somebody
Yes.
can tell this was Malimu who wrote this,
Yes.
and this was Motimbe who wrote this.
Yeah.
So now when you take what the print it's given you, you transfer it, and then now you make it sound like you.
Mm-hmm.
And that saved me. I was actually done before the time I went off.
Wow.
And I'm like, send.
Done.
I'm good.